How you doing, everybody? Welcome back to I Got Something I Have to Say. And Merry Christmas. This is the Christmas season, and I'm watching A Christmas Carol. It's one of my favorites ever since I was a little kid. And I want to go a little bit deeper. I always want to go a little bit deeper about what Charles Dickens was saying in this movie. It's very important and pressed upon me because, people think this is a Christmas movie. And it really is not. I've always seen it as a movie just set in the Christmas scene or set in the Christmas season. But it's not a Christmas movie. It was a turn of a century movie as far as I'm concerned. And I was thinking that Charles Dickens was talking about how during this time there's something that has captured all of us especially since now I believe that we're having an evolution, a revolution of Charles Dickens, of what we're going through back there when he created this masterpiece. Now, there's many versions of A Christmas Carol. There's many versions since I was a kid and watched them all, but the one with George C. Scott prevails the most for me. Now, why is this important? Well, for many reasons. They leave out an important part in a lot of the Christmas Carol remakes that they have. They leave out the part where you have the Ghost of Christmas Present. And the Ghost of Christmas Present is talking to Ebenezer, and he says, "Beware, Ebenezer. Do not look underneath my cloak, for what is there spells doom." Now, what is the Ghost of Christmas Present talking about? Well, if you've seen the George C. Scott version and paid attention, you would know. A lot of other versions don't really carry it because they want the Christmas Carol to be happy and jolly, and it's not really about all that. It's about the social economic downfalls of what we're going through, especially going through now. It comes to my attention that I'm looking around, and I'm noticing that people forgot who their neighbor is. That's one of the lessons Charles Dickens was saying was, who is thy neighbor? I helped out somebody one time, and I remember he was dirty. Dirty mean hadn't washed him while he was on the street. He was right next to my apartment building in Atlanta. He obviously was homeless. He said he was homeless. He was going through a lot of things. And I remember he had a rope, just a rope for a belt. Because obviously he hasn't eaten. He was only like 130-something pounds. He had burn marks on his skin. So I think someone might have been abusing him. I brought that up a couple different times. Of course, he gave me some bull job story about it. And I remember he asked me, he says, "Well, were you serious about helping me?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm serious about helping you." And then he came up and he said, "Well, what if your people ask you why you're bringing me up to your apartment?" "Well, what people?" He says, "The people at the front desk of the apartment building." And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, if they ask me who I'm bringing up to my own apartment, they lost their head, number one. Because the answer to that question would be none of your damn business. None of your damn business. Or any other derogatory statement that has none of your business after it. Okay. But if they did ask me, I would really say, that is my neighbor. He said he needed help. I said I would help him. That's my neighbor. Now, will I do that for everybody? In my heart, I know that I really would. There was something about this particular guy that impressed upon me. I don't know why I even stopped there that day to talk to him, or why I even thought about it. But it was amazing how he really did ask me that question, and he didn't understand what I meant by he is my neighbor, and it's real simple. He needed help. I might need help one day. That means I might need him to be my neighbor then too. And so, in other words, being that neighbor means I'm not thinking of myself. I'm thinking about what happens to him. That makes him my neighbor. It's the time that I think about what happens to him and act on it, that means that makes that I'm his neighbor right there, and I might need him to be my neighbor right there. As soon as when someone says I need you and use the word need, oh, let them use the word need and say, hey, please. Oh, that's just you didn't. The word need caught me. The please was just icing on the cake. Okay, I'm gonna help you. And of course, I let him stay in my place for a couple of days while he got some things because he was homeless, man. And I know what it's like not to have anything, especially when it's cold, especially when you don't have nothing. And I could have been like Ebenezer Scrooge. He's talking about, well, what about the homeless? Well, what about the people who haven't had anything to eat? Well, what about the workhouses? Are there no workhouses? What about jails? Are there no jails? Well, I've been there too. It wasn't just for, it was only for a night, but I've been there too. And I'd rather have my neighbor help me if possible than me being in one of those spaces. But the reason why am I so passionate about this is only because, you know, this being a movie that this is, people see it, people don't really see everything that goes on because they leave out certain parts. Well, let me explain. The part they left out is called ignorance and want. That is the part that they leave out where the Ghost of Christmas Present says, Ebenezer Scrooge, do not look under my cloak because underneath here spells doom. What is doom? Ignorance and want. Why did we start with the Ghost of Christmas past? Because he forgot. He was ignorant of the past. He forgot. So we had to start there. Christmas present said want. Well, that's wanting. And then the future shows with a combination of the two. Ignorance and want. So this is not about Christmas. This is about the evolution of a man that neglected who he was and what he's been through and forgot because he got replaced by something I already had talked about, the almighty dollar. Remember we talked about that? Feeding ambition instead of feeding your necessity, you're feeding your ambition. And that's what he was doing. So it's the same thing here. We forget about little things like who is thy neighbor when we feed that thing called ambition, because then we have things like ignorance and want that comes in there. And guess what happens? We forget who we are and forget where we came from, because I'm sure that we all didn't start out that way. So that's my little ranting and raving. I mean, I love the story to death. It's like Romeo and Juliet. People don't really understand why it's a comedy. And then we'll get into that in a whole other segment. But I'm not trying to sit on a soapbox like I understand everything. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying that these are things that I think about a lot. You know, I think about these sort of things, and I'm like, man, I wonder does anybody else really think about it in that fashion? You got Ebenezer Scrooge. She's a great Christmas story. I'm glad it was set in the Christmas season to make it easier for people to understand that during this time, that's when people really become ignorant and really become wanting, and then they forget about all the rest of the 364 days of the year. Okay, well, there you have it. 364 plus 1 equals doom. Doom. And now we're back to Charles Dickens right now in this particular time of 2011. We have ignorance and we have wanting. People thought ignorance was bliss. Ignorance really leads to death by Charles Dickens' perspective. So, you know, I just love talking about, these are sort of things I love talking about from time to time. If you have any other perspective, please let me know. I appreciate all your comments. I appreciate all your support. I said what I had to say. And thank you. And Merry Christmas, man.